IT Enabled is a technology consulting firm that works with businesses across the nation to unlock productivity, reduce expenses, and increase the company's bottom line. With more than 75 years combined experience in the technology industry, our ability to manage and maintain your systems is unparalleled. We are resourceful, trustworthy, and experienced to help your business. Learn more about how we can help you with fast and effective 24-hour support at itenabled.com.
Well, we welcome Constable of Precinct 1, Tom Selman. Tom, we're so excited to have you here today and to be able to visit with you and let our viewers and our audience get to know you more and to know what really a constable does. So welcome. Why don't you
Good. Thank you, Tara.
Start by telling everybody just a little background on yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here today, and I always enjoy getting to talk about my duties and what I do as a constable here in Precinct 1 for Angelina County. And I'm a hometown boy, lived here all my life. And I've got about 26 years in law enforcement, and I've been the constable here in Lufkin for the last 16 years. That's 4 terms. We're elected to 4-year terms. And I just have started this month my 5th term, so I'll be here for another 4 years.
Great.
And in my younger days, I was a state trooper, and I've also had a little time as a city police officer and a deputy sheriff, but that was way back when. But I really enjoy the role of constable and the duties that I perform and the people that I get to talk to and the people I get to help from day to day.
That's great. That's great. And you started in Diboll, is that right?
Well, actually, I started at the Angelina County Sheriff's Department when I was a teenager back then. I started as a dispatcher, and we actually did not even have any jailers back then in the 70s. And the dispatchers would take the prisoners up the elevator to the 3rd floor. And we had one guy that came in on the day shift that was in charge of the jail and took care of the inmates, but the trustees and the dispatchers pretty much took care of the jail operation for, 16 hours a day. And then I went to Diboll as a police officer, and then from there to the DPS as a highway patrolman, and eventually was back here working in Angelina County. When I left law enforcement to go in the private sector, I was in the wholesale, commercial, retail, gasoline marketing business for about 25 years. And worked for Land of Pines and Polk Oil, worked for Carl Ray Polk. And last at Brookshire Brothers, after the merger, I was the director of petroleum operations when I retired from the business after 25 years. That was enough stress. The gasoline business is rough.
Yeah,
it's really rough.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you retired from that and then decided to run as constable?
Well, actually, I'd been elected constable while I was still with the company.
Okay.
But I worked for the company during the day and did my constable duties in the evening and at night, and burned the candle at both ends for a while.
That's right.
But after I left the private sector, I devote my full attention and full time to the constable duties. And since I've taken office over the years, the duties have increased, and our court volume and the things that I do have increased. So it's definitely not a part-time job here.
That's right.
I can imagine.
Well, why don't you explain to everybody really what a constable is and how does it fit into city government?
Sure.
Or county government, I guess.
Right. A constable is an elected official. The office is created by the Texas Constitution, and in our county we have 4 constables. And the constable basically is the equivalent of the sheriff. However, the sheriff is elected by the people of the whole county. The constable is elected by the people of the precinct in which he resides. And the main difference between the constable and the sheriff is in our county, and each county is different. In our county, the sheriff's department has the majority of the resources. They have the staff. The sheriff's constitutionally in charge of the county jail. So most counties, the sheriff is the more prominent law enforcement guy. But under the state law and state constitution, the constables are pretty much equal with the sheriff in our responsibilities. And we have countywide authority. We're not limited to just the precinct in which we serve. And there's actually, some people don't know this, but constables have been granted some authority in contiguous counties. However, very few of us exercise exercise that because we have enough business at home to take care of.
That's right.
Yes, and so we don't really go out of our county much serving papers and whatnot. But in county government, like I said, we have 4 constables. If you know how county government is structured, of all the elected officials that we have, the majority of the elected officials in county government are related to the courts and the criminal justice system. There's 2 elected officials that deal with county finance. That's the county treasurer and the tax assessor. And they're supplemented by the county auditor, which is not an elected position. But then you have county administration, which is basically the commissioner's court, which are the 4 commissioners and the county judge. The county judge has multiple roles, and he serves in the criminal justice system as well. But when you get past the financial people and the commissioner's court, the rest of the county government is dedicated to the courts, criminal justice, and public safety. And that's one of the roles that counties play. The tax assessor collects the taxes, the treasurer pays the bills. The rest of the system outside of administration is handling the criminal courts, the civil courts. There's also mental health issues that are mainly dealt with by the upper court judges, and then there's juvenile issues. And so in my particular role, the constables serve the justice of the peace court. We can execute papers and whatnot for any court in the county, but our primary role here, the way we have it structured, is the constables are the executive officer for the justice of the peace court. And what we do is we bailiff for the court when the court's in session, when the judge needs us there, when he has people in the courtroom, which due to COVID and the current rules and restrictions that are in place on all courts that the Texas Supreme Court has, most of our court proceedings are virtual right now. There is a Zoom site for all Texas courts that was set up by the Texas Supreme Court and the Office of Court Administration that judges, plaintiffs, defendants, attorneys, all those people come together on a conference Zoom on a virtual meeting, and the judge conducts a virtual hearing with all those people.
So do you still have to bailiff in for those virtual?
No, there's no real court proceedings with live people there. The judge is usually in his chambers or in his office, and his court clerk is manipulating the proceedings as far as the technical aspect of it, of letting people talk and muting people when they need to be muted and that kind of stuff. And then you have the parties to the case. But that's kind of how it works on the civil side. And as I may have mentioned, our courts are structured into, there's 2 prongs of our court system. We have a civil court and a criminal court, and that is the same for the justice court, which is the lower court, our county courts at law, and our district courts. And the way those courts are broken up, they have a civil docket and they have a criminal docket that's separate. And the justice of the peace typically hears the civil cases that have a lower dollar amount, lower dollar value. And the breaking point there for the justice court, which just changed back in September, is $20,000. So if 2 parties have a dispute that needs to be resolved in court and the amount is less than $20,000, then their proceedings could be filed in justice court. And justice court is where pro se litigants, people who don't hire the services of an attorney, come in and they plead their own case. And that's generally how it works in justice court. Now, in the higher courts, there's different rules of evidence and a lot more complicated proceedings that require the expertise of a trained attorney. So you really wouldn't want to venture off into a county court or district court as a pro se litigant, because if you're going up against an attorney, you're at a huge disadvantage. But in justice court, the playing field is pretty level for all participants and litigants in the justice court. So my duties are divided between taking care of the papers and the warrants and the processes that the justice court, Judge Ball, he's my JP, what he issues, and then I go out and take those into the community and I try to track these people down and serve them with either civil papers notifying them that they have a court case that they're going to need to appear for, or having to arrest them and take them to jail if it's a warrant. So here in Lufkin, with our precinct being the most populous of the other 3 precincts in the county, we have a majority of the citizens. We have a majority of the housing issues here because of the sheer number of people. So our justice court is very heavy into evictions. That's one of my major roles, is to take care of the eviction process that comes out of the court. And the judge conducts the hearing and hears the case, and once he makes a ruling, then it's up to the constable to enforce the judge's ruling. And that's the way it is in all courts. As you know, judges sit behind the bench. They issue orders and rulings and whatnot. And so it's up to law enforcement to extend the reach of the courtroom beyond, or the judge beyond the courtroom.
Right.
And so we're the ones that go out and implement the orders of the court. We hold people accountable who are bound by the orders that a judge issues. And so that's a part of what we do. And again, evictions I have probably over 400 evictions a year that we handle here in JP Court in a normal year. Things have been a little bit different with COVID, but our court's still busy, and the judge is hearing cases left and right. He's got a huge docket. The other day we were talking, I think he said we have almost 800 outstanding cases on the docket, and our court calendar is just packed. They've got hearings all the time.
Well, and it just keeps getting pushed back, so nobody knows when they're going to be.
Right. So we are on track to get the backlog cleared out. Judge Ball's been working very hard, and he has his calendar is full. The cases are scheduled, and so they're starting to roll and starting to try to pick back up, because for a while we were totally shut down on. There were no in-person hearings, and as they went to this virtual arrangement, they set up this Zoom, and so that's even our evictions right now, because of the I guess the rate of infection in our community and across the state. The Supreme Court has mandated that everything go virtual now, so we're having no in-person hearings. Even our evictions are virtual.
Wow.
Interesting. So what made you want to get into this? What made you decide you wanted to be a constable, or how did that decision process go for you?
Well, back when I was really young in life, when I was just out of high school, I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. So that's what led me to go to work for the Sheriff Pete McBride at the time, and work in dispatch and at the jail. And then he ultimately promoted me to being a deputy, and then that later led to my career with the Department of Public Safety and the Highway Patrol here, and I spent about 7.5 years as a trooper. And it gives you a unique opportunity to make a difference in your community, to help people, and it's very satisfying to get criminals out of society. I enjoy, all the officers enjoy doing criminal enforcement work and serving warrants, and because unfortunately, there's some bad actors that are running around, and it's satisfying to help make a difference to keep the public safe, and to allow law-abiding citizens to live their lives without the interference of the criminal element. And unfortunately, the way things are today, more and more people are being impacted by crime and by these people in our society and our community who don't have any respect for others and their property. And so it gives me an opportunity to make a difference where I can, to supplement the police patrol, the sheriff patrol, and in my spare time, if you will, or when I'm not dealing with court papers and the business of the court, I do get out and conduct patrol. I look for DWIs at night, people that are dangerous on the road. We have a lot of reckless driver calls that come in. I like to look for those. But general patrol and trying to make a difference for our community is what I'm all about when it comes to my criminal enforcement work.
We sure appreciate that.
Absolutely. You probably have seen Tom around town. If there's a funeral, he's typically the one that is stopping traffic and letting everybody go, and then the next tag team comes up, and then he speeds off and goes to the next intersection. And it's always, I have to tell you, there's just something about seeing you stand there with your hat over your heart. It's the most respectful.
Oh, I agree.
It's just, it's heartwarming and endearing to see you do that. And so we appreciate
thank you.
The kindness.
Thank you. It's, our funeral homes here in town, they rely on law enforcement to get the families from the funeral home to the cemetery safely, and that's what it's all about, is traffic safety. And it's a minor inconvenience to others who are impacted by the procession passing by, but you've got to keep in perspective that could be one of your loved ones who's on the way to the cemetery. So most of the people in our town show a lot of respect for the funeral procession when it passes, and we're just there to help them get from point A to point B with safety.
Well, we appreciate you doing that very much.
Take care of the family.
We sure do.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's your favorite part of all of this?
Well, my favorite part of being constable is really the criminal work, which I don't get to do a whole lot of anymore because of our court caseload, but I enjoy getting out at night and getting out on the highway and working traffic and working amongst my friends who are on the highway patrol and the city police officers here that I have an excellent relationship with. I work very well with the city of Lufkin, and while I'm out working, I'm always not because I work for the county, I'm always keeping the city's interest at heart as well. As you're making your rounds around town, you see things that are going on in the city that the county really doesn't have anything to do with. So I have a real good relationship with all the city departments and the city staff, and we all work well together. Code enforcement and the water department with water issues, and code enforcement with problems at people's properties that need to be addressed, and then the police department. I answer calls with them all across town, and it's good to have extra eyes and hands in a situation if something gets out of hand, or just for officer safety, to where you can be there to assist in some small way if they need help.
Well, we all have to work together to make our city safe and continue to go in the right direction.
Sure.
So,
that's one thing that's unique with my position in the county. I can go just about anywhere I want to, and I can go down to Zavala and work down there and help them where they need help. And the county has a park down at Castle Boykin. I go down there from time to time, but mainly my run is here around Lufkin and here in town, because that's where the majority of my court work is. And so while I'm going from place to place with my court work, I'm on the lookout for things going on. I listen to the radio. I have a computer in my car that the city of Lufkin gave me to track the calls that come into the police department, because they're dispatched over their computers. And so, like I said, they have really been good to me, and we all work well together.
That's great. That's great. Well, we just appreciate you so much, and your service for so many years, and all that you do for our community and for our county. We can't thank you enough for protecting us and keeping us safe.
Well, I do what I can, just being one guy out there. I try to make a difference in my own small way. But it's a pleasure to serve. I have a deep respect for the chamber here and the work that y'all do, because our community is dependent on business. It's not really, to me, in my book, I'm not a big government guy. I'm a big business guy, because that's what makes the town click. Government's there to make sure there's a structure in place that everybody works around and abides by. But the real movers and shakers of the community is our businessmen, the people who are working hard every day, hiring and employing the folks that live here. That's what makes our community work, and the government's there, I hope, not to get in their way, but to complement them and supplement them, and to give them the tools and the things that they need for their business to be successful. That's my philosophy of how government should work. And so I admire the chamber for the work that y'all do to further that objective.
Thank you.
Well, we thank you so much again for your time. This has been eye-opening. I love these county episodes that we've had, just to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit to figure out, how all those connections work, and to learn a bit more about what these roles and positions actually do. And we thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the podcast. And we want to thank you all for listening to the podcast this week. And if you'll do us a favor, if you'll go on whatever podcatcher that you're currently using, and if you'll review and subscribe to this podcast, just to make sure that you see each episode when it comes out every week. And it also helps others to help find the episode with that as well. And if you want to watch the video version of this podcast, it is available on the Chamber YouTube channel and and the Chamber Facebook. And we will see you next week.